Folks, I'm with my friend Tom Teicholz. He's in Santa Monica. He's a blogger and producer. And Tom, tell my viewers how you started blogging, and also what kind of producing you focus on, movies, television, and so on.
Sure, Sammy. My pleasure. Nice to see you.
You too. Great to see you too.
Basically, I've been a journalist for much of my career, and once the internet and blogs and websites really began to gather steam, I started to take my journalism and my columns and my reporting about cultural events and bring that online. And because I'm in LA, I have great access to all kinds of really interesting people, exhibits, and I get to tell their stories. People
wait. They said LA had no culture. What are you talking about? Just kidding.
Yeah. But in a way, what you're saying is true. Is that people don't realize how much culture there is in LA, and there are not that many outlets covering it. So that turned out to be quite good for me, because if I call somebody, they're really happy to hear from me and know I'm going to write about them. So I've been able to, interview Frank Gehry about his architecture, hang out with Don Was and talk music, hang out with Larry Klein, hang out with, write about my own particular cultural obsessions, and whenever a new cultural institution opens, a new gallery at LACMA, the LA Museum of Contemporary Art, or the Annenberg Space of Photography, I get a backstage tour of that and get to write about that. So it's really been terrific, and I've taken those columns that I've been writing for about a decade, which have won many LA Press Club awards, and I've now put them into book forms. So this is the first one here. It's called Greetings from Tommywood.
Hey, I want one of those.
I'm going to send you one. Yeah. And they're available on Amazon in Kindle ebook and paperback version. They're available on BarnesandNobles.com and on Nook and Kobo readers. And so, again, all this great journalism, is finding a home both on the web, in book form, and my readers are some of the Hollywood agents and some of the Hollywood producers and writers and screenwriters, many of whom are writing some of the shows that we're all watching. So that's
maybe you can help me with this, because our paths are similar in that I cover a lot of events and I try to use video to express what I see in the culture. I find LA fascinating in that it seems like it's the home of the entrepreneur. You can come there, and this is my perception as an outsider. You can come there, and ideas are accepted, even more so than the Bay Area. It's less.
Yes, I think Los Angeles really is the 21st century creative capital. More people are able to make a living doing creative work in LA than anywhere else, whether you're a musician who's doing studio work, or a filmmaker who's doing YouTube or Vines, or it wants to have a multiple YouTube audience, Maker Studios, Full Frame, Awesomeness TV, and of course the whole Hollywood movie and TV business. And we're in a golden age of TV. Now, you asked me earlier about my producing. So I spent about 10 years working as a movie executive, working for production companies with deals. I ran a production company called Hyper Films that was on the Universal lot. I had my own producer deal at Fox Television Studios. And so I've taken those skills and brought them with me into this new creative world that we're discussing. I did an 11-minute film for the Museum of Tolerance about freedom of speech on California campuses. I'm now about to do some other documentaries about cultural figures. So LA is a great place and a great creative community.
You also
Oh,
have carved a niche as a luxury, and in fact, that's probably one of your luxury clients there.
let me just, okay.
Sure, but tell my viewers what your luxury blogging is about.
Oh, so, well, I mean, a while ago I did a book called Like No Other Store, where I was the co-author of Marvin Traub, who for 40 years ran Bloomingdale's department store
Right.
and made it into this national emporium for the fashionable. And doing that book was a way to tell the stories of designers like Calvin Klein and Ralph Lauren and Donna Karan, and tell the story of cosmetics, Estee Lauder, and luxury items like caviar. And so I've always been, Petrosi and caviar, I've always been very interested in the luxury market. And I guess we've all seen in the last few years, luxury has exploded.
Right.
I mean, even in spite of the recession, the number of Bentleys, Maseratis, Lamborghinis, super yachts, luxury hotels. Yes. And so I started to have a little blog within a blog about this. In my blog on Forbes.com, I have a separate little blog called Cult of Luxury. And Cult of Luxury examines everything from, I just did an interview with a French business professor who describes the luxury business model and how that's different than the fashion business model. I profiled super yacht designers. I discussed Ralph Lauren's appeal. And sort of a lot of different. I'm about to have a column probably this week about Portero.com, which is one of the most successful websites for reselling luxury handbags and watches. So, for example, the Kelly or Birkin Hermes bag, which you can't even go into a store and buy. You can buy a guaranteed, authentic, vintage, or even in the box one through them. So they're resellers. It's almost like a secondary commodities market.
Right.
So I'm very interested in this luxury, the luxury world, and not so much. I mean, some people who write about luxury, their whole point of view is, oh, luxury isn't luxury anymore. It's all
Say that.
a multi-billion-dollar, international business, and it's all made in China, and it's not luxury doesn't mean luxury anymore. But I'm more interested in what does luxury mean? How is it communicated? How do people recognize it? Why do you, when you go to a hotel that's $800 or $1,000 a night, why do you think it's worth it? Or how do they, in designing it, make you feel like it's worth it? And things like that.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I've stayed in a lot of hotels on my travels, and I always believed that a hotel was top notch if they had a robe in the closet, among other things, But I'm curious. This is off the top of my head, so forgive me. It's not. But the Washington Monthly, the latest edition of the magazine out of Washington D.C., has on the cover the rent culture. Millennials are the rent culture. They rent. Spotify. You've got,
yes.
Can luxury survive in a rent culture, or is there maybe a niche for maybe the ability to have a luxury? Well, you have Uber Black, which is luxury, but you know what I mean? Kind of renting a luxury lifestyle.
And look, pricing. I think that there are some businesses that have sprouted up to afford people a rental option for luxury items. So I know there is a very successful business that will let women rent really high-end dresses if they have to go to an event, and handbags for that event. Of course, there are places where you can rent a Bentley for a day and things like that. However, I think the difference between the thing about luxury is that luxury is often something that a way people reward themselves, and it's also sometimes something that's it has a level of being a classic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're not gonna. It's not just something you're gonna do buy today and get rid of tomorrow. You're gonna keep it for a long time, and so to that extent, I think there always will be luxury items. I think there always will be luxury consumers, even in a rent culture. Again, the other side of this is when you talk about the 1% and the rich getting richer. Well, again, that seems to be more true, not less true,
mm-hmm.
and that culture will still want to have certain status and trophy items.
Now, you also focus on Jewish culture, and talk about that. I mean, from the perspective of because a lot of ways you can go in that. Because, for example, Woody Allen is one of my favorite comedians.
Yes,
he has his perspective.
Yes, so I think that there are many people who, when you ask them how do they identify as Jewish, it's not necessarily their religious observance or or even their family makeup. It's really culture. It's, as you said, Woody Allen. For some people, it's bagels and lox on Sunday, or holiday meals or family things. But I do think that there is an extent to which the culture in general has both recognized Jewish culture and the way in which Jewish individuals have contributed to culture without any boundaries. Whether it's the participation of Jewish immigrants in creating the movie industry or the early sitcoms, whether it's in all kinds of arts, and again, I would say that there is a long, long tradition of Jewish journalism,
right,
which I am, honored to be part of, and of writing about Jewish culture, both past, present, and future. And again, I think it goes both ways. Like I like to joke. Someone says, well, sometimes people say to me, so what's Jewish about this story? And I sometimes answer that what's Jewish about it is that I'm writing about it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Which that's a valuable perspective. Yeah, that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, even though, I think we always, even in the most objective of our writing, still bring to it all our knowledge and experience. Absolutely. And life experience. I'm sure you do the same.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That being said, it's interesting. Obviously, I think cultural background can enhance, but it doesn't need to be a barrier. So, I don't know if there's some discussion about Empire, the TV show.
Right.
right? And so Lee Daniels, the director, has said that he's not that comfortable with people who aren't African American writing that show. Mm-hmm. However, with the exception of the creator and the showrunner, who are both Caucasian. Mm-hmm. And they say that, they're there to make the show work as a show.
Right.
They're not there as experts on hip-hop culture or African American culture, but they can take the knowledge of others and deploy that in the service of what has become a really fun show to watch.
It's interesting you said that because I couldn't write Empire, given my background.
Right.
And I'm black, and someone would say, what do you mean? But I grew up at a time when a lot of what hip-hop culture stands for, I was taught not to be. And that's just a very blunt statement. So, I think, for want of a better term, signifies just how complicated our culture has become, to where you can't say that anything is quintessentially just black, or anything else anymore, or maybe, it's a complicated discussion. I love it, but I'm just
yesterday I took my family for Father's Day. We went to a wonderful movie that is exactly about this topic called Dope.
Oh, how'd you like it?
Very much, and it's really about an African American nerd, high school nerd, who lives in Inglewood, and which is a sort of middle class suburb, but that parts of which still have some gangs in it, and basically about how he grew up not being part of a certain culture, but how he idealizes 90s hip hop. Anyhow, it's a really, really good movie.
Hey, I'm curious, do you think, in your writing and your observing of culture, do you think that we have become better informed about Jewish culture because of the impact of people like Woody Allen and Steven Spielberg, or does generational change erase that?
Well, I mean, the answer is yes. I think that the specific talent, I mean, it's kind of one of these things that, a Woody Allen or a Steven Spielberg, to some extent, it's not that and by the way, this is the subject of the first talking film, The Jazz Singer.
Right.
Is that to some extent, in running away from their culture and trying to and successfully assimilating into mainstream culture and making entertainment that's global, whether it's Jaws or any of Woody Allen's movies, they are again bringing with them into the mainstream culture part of their DNA. It's not completely disappeared, and I do think that acceptance and tolerance expands in that process.
So, in the interest of upload times, I'm going to bring this conversation to a close. But folks, Tom, tell people how they can find your work. And it's TommyWood.com, right?
Right. So TommyWood.com is my website. You can, as I said, find my books on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com.
Tom Teicholz on Twitter.
On Twitter, at Tom Teicholz. You can go to Forbes.com and the Huffington Post and put my name in there. And again, I'll put my name up here so you see how it's spelled.
And folks, you can also look at the description right below this video, too.
Oh, great. And so all those ways. And really a pleasure talking to you.
You too. No,